The will reading hit me like a freight train derailing in slow motion, metal screeching against metal, sparks flying into the dim, oak-paneled law office that smelled of aged leather and stale coffee. My grandmother's voice, recorded on a grainy video played by her attorney, echoed through the speakers, her sharp blue eyes piercing even from the screen. To my beloved granddaughter Elena, I leave the entirety of the Victoria Hotel Group, valued at $50 million, including all properties, assets, and controlling shares. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding in my ears like a war drum, tears blurring the edges of the room. But then came the gut punch. Marcus, my mother's new husband, leaned back in his chair with a smug curl to his lips, his manicured fingers drumming the mahogany table. "That's not quite accurate," he said, his voice smooth as oil on water. The attorney cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. "There's been an amendment. A power of attorney signed by Victoria in her final weeks, granting Marcus full operational control." My world tilted. Grandma, my fierce, unyielding Grandma Victoria, had been bedridden, her mind fogged by painkillers and the relentless grip of cancer. And this snake, this opportunistic leech who'd slithered into our family just 2 years ago, had stolen it all. Rage boiled up from my gut, hot and acidic, burning my throat as I stared at him, imagining my hands around his neck, squeezing until that smug grin faded to blue. I stumbled out of the office into the pouring rain, the city streets of New York slick and unforgiving under my heels. Water soaked through my thin blouse, chilling my skin like 1,000 tiny needles, but it couldn't douse the fire inside. How could Mom let this happen? She sat there during the reading, her eyes downcast, fiddling with her wedding ring, the gaudy diamond Marcus had bought her, probably with money siphoned from Grandma's accounts. Betrayal clawed at my chest, a raw, gaping wound. Grandma had built that empire from nothing. A single rundown motel in the 1960s, expanded through sheer grit into a chain of luxury hotels across the East Coast. She'd raised me after Dad died young, teaching me the business from the ground up, balancing ledgers at 10, negotiating deals by 16. "It's yours, Elena," she'd whispered in her final days, her frail hand gripping mine with surprising strength. "Don't let anyone take it." But now it was gone, wrested away by a man who reeked of cheap cologne and cheaper morals. I hailed a cab, the wipers slashing rhythmically against the windshield, mirroring the chaotic storm in my mind. Denial whispered first. This can't be real. A forgery, maybe. But deep down, I knew Marcus was cunning enough to make it airtight. That night, in my cramped apartment overlooking the Hudson, I paced the worn hardwood floors, the distant hum of traffic a mocking underskirt to my isolation. Heartbreak washed over me in waves, crashing against the shores of resentment. Grandma's photo on the mantel stared back, her silver hair pulled tight, lips pursed in that knowing smile. It failed her. Humiliation burned. The staff at the flagship hotel, the Victoria Grand, had already whispered about Marcus's restructuring. He'd fired loyal managers, installed his cronies, and rumor had it he was skimming profits for his own ventures. Obsession took root as I poured a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid burning a path down my throat. I imagined confronting him, screaming until my voice broke, or worse, slipping something into his drink, watching him choke. But guilt nipped at the edges. Was this who I was? Grandma had taught me resilience, not revenge. Yet the fantasies persisted, vivid and intoxicating, like a drug I couldn't quit. I sat at my desk, laptop glowing in the dark, digging through old emails and documents. There had to be a way to fight this legally. But Marcus had the lawyers, the connections. Doubt crept in. What if Grandma had signed it willingly? What if, in her weakened state, she'd seen something in him that I couldn't? The next morning I met Mom for coffee at a quaint cafe near Central Park, the air thick with the scent of fresh pastries and brewing espresso. She looked older than her 50 years, lines etched deeper around her eyes, her once vibrant auburn hair dulled. "Elena, honey, it's not what you think," she said, stirring her latte endlessly, the spoon clinking against porcelain like a nervous tick. Her voice was soft, pleading, but it ignited my anger anew. "Not what I think. He stole my inheritance, Mom. Grandma's legacy. I hissed, keeping my volume low as nearby patrons glanced over. She flinched, her hands trembling. Marcus. He helped during her illness. Paid for the best doctors. She trusted him. Lies or self-deception? I leaned in, my breath hot. Trusted him. Or was manipulated? You know he's been diverting funds. I've seen the discrepancies in the quarterly reports. Her eyes widened, a flicker of doubt, but she shook her head. He's building something better. For you, eventually. Suppressed rage simmered. I wanted to shake her, make her see the predator she'd married. But beneath it, heartbreak. This was my mother, widowed young, vulnerable to a charmer like Marcus. His manipulation was masterful. Whispers of love, promises of security. As we parted, her hug felt hollow, and I walked away with resentment festering like an infected wound. Weeks blurred into a haze of quiet desperation. I took a job at a rival hotel chain, biding my time, but every shift reminded me of what I'd lost. The polished marble lobbies, the ocean views from the penthouse suites. Inner conflict raged. Part of me yearned to move on, to honor Grandma by starting anew. But resentment won out, morphing into cold resolve. I started tailing Marcus discreetly, parking outside his office in a rented car, the leather seats sticky in the summer heat. He met shady investors at dimly lit bars, laughter booming as deals were struck. One night, I overheard him on his phone outside a steakhouse, the sizzle of grills and clatter of plates drifting out. The old bat's empire is mine now. We'll flip the properties, pocket the cash. Fury surged, but I held back, noting details, names, dates. Planning began in earnest. Fantasies of exposing his embezzlement, or something darker. Moral conflict gnawed. Revenge might destroy Mom too. Was I willing to orphan her emotionally? Doubt plagued my sleepless nights, the city lights flickering like accusatory eyes through my window. Subtle hints of my unraveling emerged. At a family dinner, Marcus's idea to smooth things over, the tension was palpable. The dining room of their upscale brownstone smelled of roasted garlic and red wine, candles casting long shadows. Marcus raised his glass, his smile predatory. To new beginnings, Elena. There's a place for you in the company, if you play nice. His words dripped manipulation, and I forced a nod, my fork scraping the plate like nails on chalkboard. Mom watched anxiously, her eyes pleading for peace. But inside, obsession brewed. I'd play along, gather evidence. As dessert arrived, rich chocolate cake that stuck to my palate, I excused myself to the bathroom, rifling through his study on the way back. A hidden file caught my eye. Forged signatures, altered financials. Heart pounding, I snapped photos with my phone, the click echoing in my mind like a loaded gun. Guilt twisted. This was trespassing, but justified? The evening ended with strained goodbyes, Marcus's handshake lingering too long. His grip firm as if testing my resolve. The turning point came on Grandma's birthday. Her first absent one. I visited her grave in the misty dawn. The cemetery hushed save for distant birdsong and the crunch of gravel underfoot. Kneeling on the damp grass, I whispered apologies, tears mixing with dew. I won't let him win. Resentment crystallized into plan. Use the evidence to sue, but layer it with something personal. That night, an anonymous tip to the IRS about tax evasion. Subtle, deniable. Suspense built as I waited, the city pulsing around me like a living entity. But then a package arrived at my door, unmarked, the cardboard rough against my fingers. Inside, a USB drive and a note in Grandma's elegant script. If you're reading this, I've been betrayed. Use wisely. Shock jolted me. How? When? Heart racing, I plugged it in. Files upon files. Recordings of Marcus coercing her signature. Emails proving fraud. Grandma had foreseen it all. Her final act of defiance from beyond the grave. Cold resolve hardened. Revenge was no longer mine alone. It was hers. As part 1 drew to a close, the pieces aligned. I confronted Mom privately in her garden, the scent of blooming roses cloying in the humid air. "Look at this," I said, showing her a snippet. Her face crumpled, denial cracking. "He said it was for the best." But doubt seeded, her voice trembling. "What are you going to do?" I paused, inner turmoil peaking. Destroy him and her with him? Or forgive? "Justice," I whispered, the word tasting like ash. The slow burn ignited. Vengeance loomed, inevitable. With Grandma's USB clutched like a talisman, I retreated to a secluded cabin upstate, the autumn leaves crunching under tires as I drove, the air crisp with pine and impending frost. Isolation amplified my thoughts, the wooden walls creaking in the wind like accusatory whispers. Obsession consumed me. Hours poring over the files, the screen's glow illuminating my face in the dim room. Recordings of Marcus's voice, oily and insistent. "Sign here, Victoria. It's for Sophia's sake." Grandma's weak protests, laced with confusion from the meds he'd likely tampered with. Anger surged anew, but layered with guilt. Why hadn't I seen it sooner? Could have protected her. Fantasies evolved. Not just legal ruin but personal devastation. Expose his affairs, his hidden debts. But moral conflict raged. Grandma's note urged wisdom, not destruction. Was I honoring her, or twisting her legacy into something ugly? Fear crept in during sleepless nights, the forest outside alive with nocturnal rustles. What if he discovered my probing? He'd ruined lives before. Whispers from ex-employees painted him as ruthless. Planning took shape methodically. I returned to the city under cover of normalcy, accepting Marcus's olive branch, a junior role at the hotel group. The office buzzed with fluorescent hum and keyboard clacks, the scent of fresh coffee masking underlying rot. "Glad you're on board, kid," he said in our first meeting. His cologne overpowering in the glass-walled conference room. His eyes gleamed with false warmth, but I detected the calculation beneath. Dialogue flowed naturally, tension simmering. "I want to learn from you," I lied, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. He chuckled, leaning back. "Smart girl. Your grandma was tough, but she lacked vision." Suppressed rage boiled. I imagined smashing the crystal decanter on his desk over his head, shards glittering like stars. Instead, I smiled, planting seeds. Subtle questions about finances, noting discrepancies. Inner thoughts churned. This proximity was dangerous, fueling resentment but risking exposure. Mom noticed the shift during a tense lunch at a bustling deli, the clamor of orders and steaming soups providing cover. "You're different, Elena. Harder." Her eyes searched mine, heartbreak evident in her furrowed brow. "Is this about revenge?" I hesitated, the sandwich turning to sawdust in my mouth. Honesty bubbled. "He betrayed us all." She sighed, revealing cracks in her facade. "I suspected. But love blinds you." Manipulation unveiled. Marcus had isolated her, controlled the narrative. My resolve wavered. Destroying him meant shattering her illusions. But as we parted, her whispered "be careful" fueled my obsession. That night, I leaked a file anonymously to a journalist friend, the email whooshing into the void like a thrown dagger. Suspense mounted. Would it stick? Days passed in agonizing quiet, the city streets a blur of honking taxis and pedestrian throngs. The first crack appeared at a board meeting, the room tense with polished suits and projected spreadsheets. Marcus presented glowingly, but a director interrupted. "These numbers don't add up. Rumors of audits." His face paled, sweat beading on his forehead under the harsh lights. I sat silently, heart thumping, feigning surprise. Afterward, he cornered me in the hallway, the carpet muffling our steps. "You know something." His voice low, threatening. Fear spiked, but I met his gaze. "Just doing my job." Suppressed rage in his eyes mirrored mine. The game was on. Inner conflict peaked. This felt thrilling, but guilt nagged. What if innocence suffered like the staff? Grandma's influence deepened the layers. Another file revealed her hidden motives. She'd suspected Marcus early, planting a mole in his circle, a loyal accountant who'd fed her intel. Foreshadowing clicked. Her forgetful episodes were feigned, buying time to compile evidence. Poetic justice brewed. She'd orchestrated this from her deathbed. I met the accountant in a shadowy park bench at dusk, leaves swirling in the chill wind. "She knew you'd fight," he said, handing over more documents, his voice gravelly. "But beware, he's dangerous." Doubt resurfaced. Was I in over my head? That night, a break-in at my apartment. Drawers rifled, nothing taken but a message scrawled on the mirror in red lipstick. "Back off." Terror gripped me, the metallic tang of fear in my mouth. But resolve hardened. No turning back. The climax built slowly, tension coiling like a spring. I confronted Mom fully, in the quiet of her kitchen, the tick of the clock amplifying the silence. "He's a fraud. Here's proof." I laid out the files, her hands shaking as she read. Tears streamed, heartbreak raw. I married a monster. Betrayal's full weight crushed her, but in her eyes a spark, resentment toward him, not me. We plotted together, morally gray. Forge alliances with board members, using Grandma's evidence to oust him. Obsession shared. Late nights whispering strategies, the scent of chamomile tea soothing frayed nerves. The board vote loomed, the conference room electric with anticipation. Marcus argued vehemently, his tie askew, voice cracking. "This is a witch hunt." But the evidence mounted. Recordings played, gasps echoing. His face contorted in fury, eyes locking on mine with pure hatred. As votes tallied against him, he lunged across the table, knocking over water glasses that shattered like brittle bones. Security dragged him out, his shouts fading down the hall. Victory tasted bittersweet, cold resolve melted into exhaustion. In the aftermath, the twist unfolded. With control restored, I discovered Grandma's final clause in the will, buried deep, activated only upon betrayal, a trust fund redirecting assets if fraud proven, plus a personal letter. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but forgiveness warms the soul. Choose wisely. Psychological impact hit. My pursuit had been her design, but the moral grayness lingered. Marcus faced charges, his empire crumbling, but Mom's heartbreak echoed mine. Unexpected consequences. She left him, but the family scar remained. In the end, standing atop the Victoria Grand's roof, city lights sprawling below like a conquered kingdom, I felt not triumph, but hollow resolve. Grandma's ghost smiled. Justice served, but at what cost?